was made for a time like this. But how do I know that this is for me and this is my purpose? That's why I pray for major blessings. I pray God guided me safely through my adolescence. Went through many trials and I learned many lessons. Even when I was lost, I had faith and I stayed with it. And I finally found me. It was easy to do once I realized I was worth finding. Now I can see that silver lining. Only time can tell if it all goes well. Hope I make a difference before I say farewell. They say you're the best when you're homegrown, and even better from the 850.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode From Boys to Men. I am your host, Terry Mr. King. I'm here with my co-host,
Eddie Bunch,
okay. And we got our special guest today. I'm going to let him introduce himself. We got two special guests, actually.
My name's Nathan Hall, and this is my son.
Hello.
Oh, you got to say your name.
My name's Evan Hall.
It's all right. We're working on getting him his communication skills up to par.
Don't worry, he's gonna be a pro.
Fine.
He's gonna be a pro by the time he ends.
Don't be nervous, baby.
got it?
Yes, sir. Hey, trust me. Anything you do for the first time, it's okay to be nervous.
Yeah, definitely.
But nervous let you know that you can be excited about something new. So there's a good side to the nervousness. Okay. All right. So we got a special guest today, Mr. Nathan. I want y'all to Evan. I want y'all to explain to people a little bit about what y'all been through in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And everything.
I was older when Evan was born. And it wasn't an accident or anything. It was planned. I'd been married for about 12 years at the time. And then shortly after Evan's mom gave birth to him, she got sick a little bit, and she passed away. It'll be 3 years ago this January 10th. And she was 43 at the time. Yeah. And so you just kind of, you go through the emotions of, because it was completely unexpected. And you go through the emotions of, how am I going to, one, live without your best friend, your partner, your confidant, everything, you know, and then it really sets in. It's like, how am I going to be a mother and a father all at once? So you start changing those gears up, like, you know, I can't just be the strong male figure anymore. I've also got to be nurturing and try to fill both voids at once. And it's a struggle, and it's a struggle till this day. And, you know, anybody that says being a single parent is easy is definitely lying, either to themselves or to whoever they're talking to. But luckily, I got a really good family, both her side and my side, and they help me out where they can. I work shift work right now, so my parents watch Evan at night when I'm working for the sheriff's office. And but that's changing come next week, so I'll be riding a desk for the rest of my career, and home working Monday through Friday, and off on weekends and nights, and no more holidays and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so you can talk and say how it felt to lose your mom.
When I first, found out, I just felt shocked, and I just didn't, believe it. That it happened. Yeah. I mean, over time, I just grieved more about it. Yeah. And just accepted it.
Yeah.
But what did she die from?
When he was about 2 years old, she got a bacterial infection, and it caused some issues with kidneys. And basically, what they said was an nephrotic syndrome, is where the kidneys start pouring proteins into the blood streams and stuff like that. So, is kind of like an autoimmune disease. So basically what happened was, if I got a cold, it's a cold. But if she got a cold, it'd be like the flu times 10. And what would happen, her kidneys would shut down, and she put on a lot of water weight. Well, she got, I was working one night, and it was a Monday night. It was the 7th of January. And she called me and said she wasn't feeling well. And I said, hey, you want me to come home? Because I'm a watch commander, I'm a lieutenant, so, I have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can come home and take her to the emergency room. And she's like, no, I'm not feeling better in the morning. So, and it was flu season and stuff like that. So we took her in the next morning, and spent like 6-7 hours in the emergency room, and you know, like, it's not the flu, this, that, and the other. So they sent us home. Next day, same thing. It was one of those standalone emergency rooms, and then so we went back the next day, same thing, sent her home. Third day, she was like doing really bad, and we took her in, and then they're like, no, she's got sepsis. Basically, it's where just an infection, and the body starts turning on itself and shutting down all its organs and stuff. So they said, we're going to transfer to UWF, or West Florida, sorry. And so I was like, okay. He was getting off the school bus. I said, I'll meet you at the hospital. They took her by ambulance, and I went and picked him up. And then by the time I got from my house to UWF, or West Florida, they were transferring her to ICU. And they started hitting her with some pretty heavy antibiotics. And they were like, oh, she's doing better, this, that, and the other. 7 o'clock's visitation's over, so you can go home. And her parents were coming down, and then they called me at like 10:45 that night and said, you need to come back up here. So I called my parents, who at the time lived like 5 miles from me. Yeah. And so that my mom came and stayed with him because he was asleep. And me and my dad drove up there. I knew. Being a cop for 26 years, I knew what was happening. Mm-hmm. So I drove me and my dad up there, and you know, because you know, you ask what's going on, and they said, we'll have to talk to you when you get here, so you know. Yeah. And basically what happened was, I guess the antibiotics weren't working as quick as they thought. She started putting on water weight, and it surrounded her heart, caused her to have a heart attack, and she passed. So, but yeah. And she was like my best friend. She was, if I weren't at work, I was at home with them. And so, you know, even to this day, you get emotional and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, I'm given an opportunity though to kind of experience parenthood in a different way, because I'm doing a lot more than I would have if my wife Dana had not passed, but she was definitely the better parent. She was definitely the glue that held the family together. But so yeah, it's kind of gives me an experience to learn and do new things, and and honestly be a better dad and be a better man. Yeah. And so now I'm trying to teach him how to be a man, and also how to be compassionate, you know, because, you know, you know, men are certain ways, you know, and not all men are all the same, but like, you know, I have a tendency to be a little harder and things like that, less empathetic, sympathetic, especially with what I do for a living. You see so much, you kind of just get that calloused. You just get calloused.
No, like you're like feeling.
Yeah. And so I'm constantly, I work on myself more now than I ever have, trying to be a better person, and I'm always trying to do something new, and just, you know, try to give him everything he needs, because, you know, if he needs a hug or a kiss, I'm not ashamed. I've never been ashamed of public affection for my son, but you know, I'm even more so. It's just I don't care. You know, people can say, well, men don't. I don't care. Men. There's not a definition of a man other than somebody that keeps their word, is good to people, and stands up for those that aren't capable or unwilling to stand up for themselves. And that's what I'm just trying to push. Plus chivalry. We're still holding doors for ladies and stuff like that. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with that. All right, so Evan, this is a question for you, because I got a son too. So when your dad kisses you in public, do you try to wipe it off, or do you just allow it to allow him? See, you need to tell my son this, because look, I have a problem. Every time I try to kiss my son, I hug him. Sometimes he's like, okay, you accept the hug. But when I start kissing, he's like, ew, cute.
Okay. Now I'm going to embarrass him a little bit.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Now, when I kiss him in public, because we live not too far from his school, so I drive him to school, or he rides his little electric motorcycle, and I'll ride my motorcycle, and we'll exchange our hugs and kisses before he goes into public's eye. And a couple months ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 1 or 2 months ago, I had to bring some paperwork into the lobby. I get to the front door and I'm like, give me a hug and kiss, and he does exactly that. He's like, nope. So in a crowded room with the entryway to his elementary school, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Daddy loves you, Evan. I'm gonna miss you." And he just turned red. And I told him, I said, don't ever do that again, because I will do it every day of the week. I said, I'll get dressed in uniform. I'll come follow you around the halls, but nah, and then he's getting at that age, because he's 10 now. So he's getting at that age where you kind of have to pull that affection back a little bit, not because you want to, but he's got to become his own person too. And I don't, as much as I want to hug him and kiss him and love on him and stuff like that, I also have to let him be his own person. And that's one of the big things about being a parent is, you have to respect your kids. You have to respect their wishes, their wants to an extent, but you have to be a guiding force in their life. And I always try to tell people, especially young guys and girls that work with me that are having kids and stuff, I said, you can be friendly with your kids, but you can't be their friends. Yeah. And the reason being is when you make your child your friend, you put them on the same level. Yeah. And you can't make you cannot have that, because then when you tell them to do something, they're like, well, you can't tell me what to do. We're on the same level. Yes. So I can be compassionate. I'll be friendly with him. We have tons of fun together. But he also knows when it's time to do what he's told, he does it, or there's consequence. Oh, yeah. And he's like me, spanking him doesn't do any good. I would have taken 10 beatings for anything. But talking to my dad, oh my God, my dad, if he just all he had to do is tell me he's disappointed in me. It crushes you. It crushes you. And that's one thing I have to admit. I think that has helped me a lot is my parents are still married. They just celebrated their 52nd anniversary. Congratulations. And they. Just to kind of give you a background, I had a good sized house, and I lost more than half my income, so I started doing the math and stuff. And I'm like, I just want to be able to afford my lifestyle and still be able to do things for him and stuff like that. So we sold the big house, and my parents were like, well, where are you moving to? They sold their house, which was paid off, and then built a new house. Literally, there's a house in between our two houses. Nice. It's going to work out great though, because they're going to help me get him to a point where he's independent and self-sufficient, and then it'll be my turn to help them. Yeah. So that's but that's all the big plan, and I had by far the best father anybody could ever have, and a perfect example of what a man is. Yeah. And and a lot of people think men are 6'2" and 245 pounds. My dad's 5'5" on a good day. On a good day. On a good day, and like $130. But he's probably the best man in this world is probably ever going to know. He just doesn't have the limelight of like celebrity or famous people in history. But so
that says something. Because I like to touch on that what you said about kids can't be your friend, because. I'm a single dad too. I got custody of my son, but like my mom and my grandma helps out a lot, and it plays a big part into like his development. But where I feel like they messed up a little bit, they became his friend. Yeah. So when they tell him certain things, it just no. But then when I have to come in there and like I don't like putting my hands on my kid. Like I got my hands put on me when I was a kid, and I was like it kind of confused me about what love was and everything else too. So, like, I make my son run, do push-ups, and hey, trust me, I get the point across with him running, and then I talk to him afterwards. Yep. And I feel like the biggest part is actually sitting there and communicating with your kids. Like, hey, this is what you messed up at. I'm not just going to punish you for no reason. I need you to understand, like, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Yeah. So,
and that's the thing is and there's going to be times where you have to dole out punishment immediately. Yeah. And you don't have time to really explain to them because they may be doing something stupid. They may get themselves hurt or something like that. But when you have the opportunity, explain it to them, because basically what you're doing is you're building the building blocks for their parenting skills. Yeah. And that's and the thing is you may not think about it when they're 5 or something like that, but kids are sponges, and they will build how they deal with their kids the way they're dealt with. Yep. And my parents, my dad was in the Air Force, so he was gone all the time and stuff like that. But when he was home, he was like a dad. He was engaged. There. Yeah, he was engaged. He wasn't, the typical. And there's no typical dads, but what people like to say that the dad just comes home, sits on TV, he sits on the couch. No, most dads aren't like that. No. But yeah, and you have to think about. You can't just think about the incident today. You're like, okay, what lesson can I teach them that is going to be impactful when he's 30, 40, 50, 47 years old, like I am. So.
Evan, I just want to say you have a great father, and he has a good understanding of not only how his actions will impact you in the future, but even just like how the way he speaks to you may impact it. You have children who they don't respect their parents at all because they try to be too authoritative with them, or they don't listen and they don't take their advice because they try to be too friendly with them. But your father also obviously has a great grasp on that balance, and also showing you enough love to the point where when you grow up, you don't need to find it. You won't feel like you need to go searching for it. You have it at home, and anything you choose to bring into your life should reflect that. So great props to you. Because,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I was talking with my sister yesterday about some of the issues that we have with our father, and it's as a kid, it obviously hurts when somebody you love and care about messes up. Yeah. But there's always opportunity for forgiveness.
And that's exactly it. When I do have to punish him or something like that, I think he understands that it is once it's done, it's done. I don't hold grudges. No. And it has to be immediate. You can't be one of these people that the kid does something for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks and you let it slide, and all of a sudden you blow up at him and you're like, no, you address it immediately, because once he does it the first time or they do it the first time and you allow it to slide and they do it the third, fourth, fifth, they think that it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then when you blow up, it confuses them. Yeah. It's just like any of your friends or anything like that. It's just basic relationships. And if somebody does something you don't like, you have to address it immediately and then let it go. Mm-hmm. And if they continue, then you address it again, or you have to remove yourself from the situation. Obviously, he can't walk out. He's not moving out of the house until 6 weeks from now. Then he's getting his own job. And,
yeah. Whenever my son told me he's running away, all right, people think I do this and it's dramatic. But I say, no. I say, all right, I need you to get out all your clothes. That's mine. I bought that. I'll let you keep one pair of underwear. Yep. I'll let you get one pair of socks, and you can get out. He's like, no, wait. I was like, oh, yeah, you can't use my phone. You can't use nothing else. And then afterwards, he's like, no, I love you. I'm sorry. I don't want to. I was like, I had to tell him, it's not the part what you're trying to run away. It's you understand what you're running away from. Yeah. And it's you're hurting people by telling them, I don't love you no more. I don't want to live here. I was like, you got to think about it. These people were here when you had nobody. Yeah. And they love you unconditionally. Yeah. And no matter where else in the world, you will never find no other people that love you more unconditionally than your parents and your grandparents. Yeah. They'll bend over backwards. They'll go through hell and high water. They'll kill somebody for you.
And that's exactly it. Because if you do go through a dramatic situation, and you'll know who your friends are, because they'll show up and then they stay. And life moves on and stuff like that. And I've grown apart from most of my wife's friends. Yeah. All except for her best friend. They're still in our life. We go to birthday parties together. We don't buy each other Christmas gifts, but we buy the kids Christmas gifts, stuff like that. So, you're like, okay, this is 3 years later, and we're still going over to their house. We went over to their house 2 weekends ago for breakfast and just hung out with them for 2 hours. And nice. So, and most of my friends I've known for 20 plus years, and I had my closest friends all showed up to the hospital. My wife died. Mm-hmm. That at 12:30 at night, I had a big quit whatever they were doing and came and saw me. And those are the people that you want to keep in your life. You want to keep the positivity. And that's one thing I've been really working on because as a police officer and going through the loss of my wife, it kind of made me, it makes you jaded, and you get to the point you're just like, what's the point? And so I've really been working on myself the last year or so about trying to be a positive influence to everybody. And if I can't be a positive influence in your life, I don't need to be here.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie. Even in the gym, when I see him, there's always a smile on his face. There's always some words of encouragement. And to be honest, I watch him work out, and I'll be like, I get encouraged to work out more because, like, hey, when I get up to 40, I'm trying to look just as good and just as big and keep the same strength up and everything too. And like the conversations too, because I remember we talked about your kids one time, and we talked about a little bit about this. Mm-hmm. And like he came in with open arms, like, if you ever need anything, let me know. And when you find people genuine like that, that's like good mentors and everything. And like that's unconditional.
It kind of reaffirms your belief in people too. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You interact with so many bad-hearted people, and it just kind of chips away at you a little bit.
And I think social media and like media, where they put out so much hate and everything.
And that's one thing. I have zero social media. I don't have any social. LinkedIn. I've got it because I'm getting close to retiring from the sheriff's office. I have zero social media. He has zero social media.
Yeah.
The reason being is the term is perfect, Facebook friends. Okay. A friend that gets on and likes a picture, or, you're like, and as soon as they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that, and this, that, and other.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, no, a friend is somebody that is going to sit down and have a conversation with you when you're down.
Exactly.
And it's not going to just like your posts on Facebook or Instagram or whatever other outlets you may be on, but and that's the thing is society, we have gotten so far away from communications.
Exactly.
And I can say it now because, like, a lot of times when we deal with the public, these younger officers, and there's the nervousness of just being young, but I became a cop when I was 20 years old. So, I was going to people's houses and dealing with their problems. They're older than my parents. And I'm sitting there thinking in the back of my mind, here, I'm 20, 21 years old, and I'm telling this 50-year-old man and woman how to live their lives, and I don't have that kind of life experience.
Exactly.
And you start thinking about what is wrong with this picture. But it goes back to society today is like the young officers. A lot of the young officers have no communication skills because everything is done by text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And texting, you can't really get context because you don't the inflection. Because
how they say it.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
like, oh, great, or great.
You'll never
it's
know.
It's the same word, but you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And in communication's instant when you talk. It's like you ask a question, you get a response. Text messaging, you text somebody, and if they're emotionally immature and they're mad about something, they ghost you and they don't talk to you for 2 or 3 hours or a day or something. That's not how
we talk.
That's not how humans should communicate.
Exactly.
We should be more evolved than that. So yeah, he's probably gonna hate me when he gets a little bit older because I'm gonna be that person that's like, son, I love you, but nobody cares what you're eating for lunch. Son, I love you, but nobody cares what you're wearing to school today except for you. Don't take a picture of that because nobody cares.
I'm the same way.
You're not even wrong about like the whole Facebook friends kind of thing, because like, let's say you have like 1,000 followers on your Instagram, right? And you go through a personal tragedy and you post it. How many of those people are going to slide up at the least, like the bare minimum, and just ask if you're okay?
Yeah.
Like, just check up on you, make sure you're doing good.
Who your true friends are, hearts and prayers. Everybody, hearts and prayers, hearts and prayers, hearts and prayers. Mm-hmm. No, you know what?
They take the empathetic
Go to their house, give them a hug, let them cry, see if they need anything, and then check on them. A buddy of mine, going back to my wife, I think God's given me a gift. One, because he's allowed me to realize that I don't focus on the loss of my wife. I focus on the 21 years we were together. Mm-hmm. Married for almost 20. And she made me a better man. She made me more caring, more loving, and made me realize that, you know, it's okay to understand your feelings and not be, well, like I've been for most of my life, where something bothers me, guys just shove it down, shove it down, don't address it. And, you know, I'm not ashamed that, there's many a times where life just gets rough, and I've literally pulled in behind buildings and just lost it and cried. And that's fine, you know, because that is naturally your stress leaving the body. Is your body's trying to get stress off. You're just that stress. But having lost my wife, I had a buddy that passed away. He was a sergeant with the sheriff's office, and he passed away on the 9th of December. And I've been able to help his wife, kind of like guide her through, and we talk or text almost daily. And when she's having a bad day,
you there?
And you know what? And when I'm having a bad day, she boosts me. And it's a completely platonic relationship. She's an amazing woman, but she's going through a really, really rough time. And she actually found her husband. He passed away in his sleep in their bed. So and the thing is, it's funny, you know, being in law enforcement, how many people that I have come in contact with since then that have lost somebody recently. So I kind of, you know, and sometimes you have to shed some tears and really let a little of yourself exposed and tell people your story, so you kind of give them hope. And that's what it's all about is you're not going to take away the pain or anything like that, and you can understand it, but, you know, her relationship with her husband was different than what my relationship with my wife was. And you understand what they're going through, but you don't know exactly what they're going through. So you just be there for them. And I've run into quite a few people that I've been able to kind of help through and stuff like that, which is, you know, if I can take some pain away from somebody, then that's, you know, more power to it. So, but
that's spot on. How you're supposed to support people in
their darkest times. And that's just. And I tell Evan, it doesn't cost anything to be nice or kind. You know, and something as simple as holding a door. We were in the mall yesterday going Christmas shopping, and that lady wanted our table. We were sitting at the food court, and she was overpacked. She had, I guess, I don't know if her husband was getting food or whatever. She's like, "You can have the table." She's trying to move from this bar in the food court to the mall over, and I was like, I'm a stranger. I grab her baby, I'm holding her baby, help her sit her stuff up and set it down. 5 minutes, Merry Christmas, boom. Not even 5 minutes, 30 seconds of helping somebody. It's those simple things. And I think if more people did stuff like that,
this world would be way better.
The world would be way better. And we wouldn't look at each other through how we're being instructed or told to through the media, because the media don't care, because division and animosity is what sells. And you know, if they can get us going at each other's throats for, you know, your sexual preference, political preference, color, whatever, and if you have division and animosity towards somebody just because they're different than you, well, you know what? Guess what? Sometimes it's really good to have something different. It's like food, and it's just this simple. You look at food, you're like, oh, I don't like that. How many times have I said, just try it? And he's like, oh my God, that's good. It's the same thing with people. Yeah, they may not look like you, or they may not have the same political views, but they could be like a really good friend, and you just don't talk about certain things.
Exactly.
Or you could talk about it with an open mind and understanding that you're not going to change everybody's heart or mind, but you can have an understanding. And if you have an understanding of people, then you can get so much further than where we are.
Yeah, because actually me and one of my best friends, we went out to eat at Waffle House like 3-4 months ago. And we started talking about stuff. Like, we talk about political stuff. We talk about Black Lives Matter, all this different stuff. And I got a Black Lives Matter clothes line.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, start talking about everything else, like, talk about what's going on. I told him, I voted for Trump and everything. He's like, wait, what? I was like, and I was like, to be honest, I agree with a lot of stuff he was saying. And it was my vote. And it was my opinion at that time who I wanted to vote for. But me and him got in a whole complete argument about me going like, he's like, no, this. I was like, bro, to be honest, he's like, well, think about this. Black Lives Matter is political. I was like, no, the idea was not political. I said, other people adopted it to make it political. I like the idea of what it was standing for.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, like, really, yeah, our lives matter. And yes, I agree, everybody's lives matter, but I was like, it's really important to understand, like, yeah, I had to go in depth with him about literally everything. And, like, literally, he stormed off from me and was like, bro, I don't know if I can be friends with you no more. I was like, dang, you're going to not be friends with me because one thing I do.
You have 1,000 things in common in that one
thing that's different.
And know what? Yeah, you know, when Trump first ran, you know, I'll admit I'm conservative.
Yeah.
I was raised in a military family. It's the way I was raised. It's the way my mind thinks. I didn't want to vote for Trump. I wanted Ben Carson. I wanted to vote for him because I was like, that man is well spoken. He is calm, and honestly, Trump, you know, he did some good things for this country, but. And
they don't even talk about it, to be honest. He actually did a lot for the black community, too.
He is not the most eloquent. No. He's a typical New Yorker, and what comes on his mind, he talks the way I talk.
Yeah.
If it comes in my head, I don't have a filter. It usually comes out of my mouth. But it's my opinion. Don't get offended by my opinion.
Exactly.
You know, and just because, you know, and sometimes opinions are based on either wrong information or not enough of information.
Exactly.
So that's when you have an opportunity to have a discussion with somebody and sit there and say, yeah, let's work this out and see, okay, why do you like Trump? Why don't you like Trump? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, he did do a lot of great things for this country.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be honest with you, being a single dad going grocery shopping, I hate the fact that I've got to pay more for gas. And everything like that. And the other day I was walking out of the grocery store and I had enough. I had so little that I could carry it in my two hands. I was pushing a shopping cart. It was $130. I'm like, goodness, that's ridiculous. But it also goes back to the political divide. Is you see when Obama was in office, you saw the right saying, God, I hope he fails. Why would you want him to fail? He's the president of our country. You want him to do well. Exactly. And then when Trump got in,
same thing.
The left side freaked out and wanted him to fail, and now the right side's doing
the same thing.
I can say I think the left and the right are both kind of like Biden. Like, I think Grandpa needs to go home, but
go Brandon.
but that's the thing is if you can have conversations, because if you took us out of society and we've got 20,
yeah,
29, 47.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a white cop, 47 years old, been a cop for 26 years. You wouldn't think that the three of us would be sitting down having this conversation.
Nope.
But that's the great thing about this country is that people are better than what is portrayed on the news. Exactly. And what I try to reference it is sporting events. Have you ever been to a big sporting event?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you are white, black, Asian, Native American, whatever, you can be gay, straight, left, right, whatever. If you're pulling for the same team, everybody's on the same team. You will see a white conservative guy and a black liberal guy hugging it out if your team scores a touchdown. And if you can't approach society like that, why? Why can't you? If you can come together for a 3-hour sporting event and do that, why can't you do that in society?
Exactly.
See, and I feel like those kind of discussions too, like context is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't vote when Trump first ran, but, you know, you have two candidates, they've never been in office, so you don't have a track record.
Yeah.
Like, at least not in the president's office.
Yeah.
You have, both of them have their past and things that you don't like, so at the end of the day, it's really just a bad choice, and from there, you just had to see, you know, how they would perform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me personally, I still don't think Hillary would have been a good president. But we got to see
behind closed doors.
Yeah, like we got to see Trump, and by the time 2020 came around, I was able to make the decision. Like, you know, that's not what I want to see.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like Joe Biden either, but like
sometimes it's the lesser of two evils on your ideas.
Exactly. And so like, there's no reason to, and even just like that feeling of like, you know, like I'm better than you because I have this opinion. And a lot of the time, like I see people who have like a certain mindset. Like, you know, they're super liberal,
mm-hmm.
and it's like you don't even understand the concepts about what you're talking about or why it should be this way. if I asked you to explain it to somebody else, you would just sit there. Like you wouldn't be able to say anything past 3 sentences. So it's like, don't act like you're better than somebody if you don't even really understand what you're pulling for.
And that goes back to the social media era, because the thing is people read the headlines
and they don't
read the story. They don't want to educate themselves. And that's why you have people, when they have an argument, that you start calling out names. Because you call names when you don't have
nothing
an
else to
argument.
say.
And it goes on both sides.
Yeah.
You've got people get called racist or bigots or whatever just because you disagree with their opinion. Well, get past the initial shock of the conversation and see why they feel that way.
I know,
and then you can still disagree at the end of it, but you can't do it emotionally. And that's what our society is. It's emotionally charged all the time.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get anything done
emotionally.
You can't have a conversation with somebody if you're emotional, whether it's sad, angry, whatever. If you have emotion that is overwhelming the conversation, you're not going to have a well thought out discussion.
Because I think, and that's why I thank the military, because it's sort of helped me get to that point where I'm like, I can have conversations without emotions. Mm-hmm. And I had different people come from like everywhere. I had actual black guys came from Africa. Like, they was raised a different way than everybody else up here. And like, I was the country's person because he's like, oh, you got an accent. I was like literally coming into a melting pot, you learn everybody's perspective. Yeah. And you learn, you may have different opinions, different outlooks, but you don't disrespect them as a person just because they got different opinions. I'm like, that's what makes them who they are. Yeah. Our differences, our similarities sometimes bring us together, but our differences will make us better. Yeah. Because you can see something from a different viewpoint than everybody else.
Exactly. If you can look at a problem through 3 different angles, you're going to have a lot better understanding of the situation. Yeah. And that's where, like me growing up in a military family, I've lived all over the country and all over the world. So I've seen how different people live in different parts of the states and different parts of the world. And it really does irritate me when people like badmouth this country, because I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. We have our flaws and we've made our mistakes in history, but the thing is we can't live in the past. We can only work for the future. Yeah. And if you think this country is so bad, go to some place that is really bad, and you'll have a completely different understanding. Like I went to Jamaica back in May, and typical American. I went to a resort and it was great and everything's caviar and wine and this, that, and other. But we also went off and you see how poor that country is in some locations, and you get an understanding, and then you start thinking about, oh my God, is our problems really that bad? These people they're living in not completed homes and things like that, and you're like, yeah, our lives aren't that bad.
Yeah. See, I feel like this is going to tie in really well. So can I ask your opinion as a cop, having the experience, just also from being a cop and also seeing the portrayal of the police since, the whole George Floyd protest, and even dating back to Trayvon Martin, because that's when I personally remember the Black Lives Matter being created. Yeah. And like, even though it didn't have as much push and drive as it does now, I remember that's when it was founded, and that's when these conversations really started to happen.
And that's, okay, we'll start with the Trayvon Martin case, because I do follow this because it does impact me. The thing is they wanted to portray George Zimmerman as like being a police officer. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't related to cops. What he did was stupid. I don't ever, ask people or want people to try to do law enforcement things because they're not trained in it, and stupid things like that happen. Yeah. But, he was tried, and whether you like the outcome or not, that's what it is. Yeah. My personal opinion on that is, I think it's a double-edged sword. Cops are being portrayed as racist, and they're like, all cops are racist, all cops are racist. Okay, but then your argument is exactly what you're accusing us. You're saying every cop is a racist. No. So, okay, so you're saying that I hate all black people or all people that don't look like me. you're using a blanket term, saying that we use blanket terms by saying all black people are bad.
Yeah.
And now you're saying all cops are bad. You're doing the same thing of you're accusing us of doing this. You're doing the same thing you're accusing us of doing. Mm-hmm. And the thing is you know what? Yeah, are there bad cops? Yeah. Yes. You know what? They get jammed up. And it boils down to this. If you hit me, you're going to get arrested. If I'm a police officer, you hit me, you're going to get arrested. And you're going to face state charges, okay? Yeah. If I hit you, I can face state charges and federal charges. Because if the state charges don't, turn out the way a prosecutor wants, they go you federal for violating your civil rights. The main thing is cops are humans just like everybody else. Yeah. I bleed, I cry, I have the same issues that everybody else does. You're like, yeah, there's been times in my life when I first started out in law enforcement and I wasn't making any money and I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? And there were times that me and his mom, when we first got together, it was like, do we pay our electric bill or do we buy groceries? And then we ate what was ever in the pantry. Yeah. I think the two entities really need to sit down and quit talking at each other and talk with each other. Yeah. And realize that there are instigators on both sides. There are some bad cops, yeah. And there are some people do some stupid things, but I've seen a turn of where everything that a cop does, they're like, oh, they need to go to jail. They need to go. Well, I also tell people this: law enforcement is an ugly job. Yeah. It is an ugly job. This is a implant. I've had my tooth knocked out. I've had a partial dislocation of a hip. I've had concussions, I've been cut, I've been shot at multiple times. And, never once during an emergency response in 26 years did I ever know of a police officer say, well, what is the victim's color? No, when we get the call, the felony tones go out, we go. I don't care if you're white, black, rich, poor, everybody's treated the same, in my view. Not everybody thinks like that. Yeah. And there are people on the Black Lives Matter side, and they are just trying to do best for their people. And then there's those some that want to instigate, like when you have like Antifa getting involved, and they start, what's the sense of all that? What is the sense of burning down neighborhoods and things like that? Because all you're doing is you're hurting the people you're trying to help. Yeah. And it's sad. I think we can get past it if we start having conversations and we each understand each other a little bit more. But, I'm a white guy and I don't know what it's to be a black male. Yeah. And know what? Black males don't know what it's like to be a white guy or a white cop. Try to understand each other. And the thing is instead of looking at a person and making a judgment on how they look or how they're dressed or whatever, get to know them. Yeah.
See, before we get into the discussion about all the ongoings, those sensationalists who do go in and they instigate, I find it ridiculous as well, because it's like, Black Lives Matter started off as a message. Yeah. Now, and even though it got adopted into something political, it's frustrating when you have people who are there to demonstrate and protest, and then you have people who take advantage of it because they want to just have what feels like a thrill to them. They just want to cause chaos.
They want to rush.
Yep. So I'll let you know, on this side too, it's frustrating to see, because then now those people who want to sensationalize it in the media, they get to use that. And they're like, Black Lives Matter protesters are rioting and doing all this. Yeah. When it's like, when you watch the video, you see them telling them to stop. Like, what are you doing? Because now it's just going to cause a bigger issue.
Yeah, and a lot of times you have these outside influences like Antifa that comes in. And most of those people are privileged, upper middle class white kids that have never
dealt with nothing.
They've never dealt with living in abject poverty and things like that. Yeah. And they want to have a cause because their life is so easy. They don't have to struggle for anything. So they have to find a cause, and then they go to the extreme.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like anything. You know, pizza. I love pizza,
but
I can't eat it every day.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's great to have a slice every now and again. Just like, you know, you can be passionate about something, but you can't let your passion overrun you to where it becomes a negative influence.
Mm-hmm. See, now, because I can see on both sides. Because I got pulled over a couple times just because I had my hood on in my car on the way to Panama City. But also I know there's a lot of good cops because I had an anxiety attack in the end of last year outside of Jimmy's in Quintet. And if it wasn't for the cops that was there getting me like back order, I felt like I was dying. Like my heart felt like it was just pounding down my chest. And I got a lot of friends that are cops. And like I have like, that's the thing about it. I'll be like, dang, I see so much bad going in because like you said, there's so many people that's talking at people versus talking with them. And like certain stuff they put out on social media is like all the bad. But I say we can't use these labels no more. Because I know a lot of good white cops that are like the outstanding police officers. And I know some black people that are outstanding black people. I feel like the media is really what is using the outlet to push more division. I understand like there's a lot of bad stuff, and yeah, we do need to get away with all the bad apples. And every entity in like Black Lives Matter with people, and the same thing with police officers, the bad ones. Like I really feel, but like think about anything in life, you're gonna have some bad apples, and you just got to deal with them when they come to it.
As an individual, not as a group.
Exactly.
You can't say all cops are bad because they're not all bad.
Yeah.
All black guys aren't bad because they're not. Not all Asian folks. You can't use broad
terms for
certain
that's
people. Exactly right.
Because I know in the military, what we used to do, when there was one person that did something out of line and got all of us in trouble, yeah, you made us look bad. But when closed doors, you ever seen the movies they talk about when you hold the sheets down and they hit you with a bar of soap? We actually did that.
Yep.
Because it's like, bro, you ain't just made yourself look bad, you made the whole people look bad. So I believe that does happen with policing. Like I'm a big supporter of Black Lives Matter, but I also support the cops because at the same time we're both needed. I look at it like this. Until they start pushing our division. Because, like, yeah, the main thing most media focus on today is they try to say either a bad cop or a bad black guy. That you see, like, you remember there was a dude on social media, he was outside playing in the community, or the cop playing basketball with people, got them basketball goal. I was like, I feel like if you start pushing out more good, and, you know, like I said, the justice system behind, like, the policing is one part of the justice system. Then you got the court system. Now, really, if you think about it, it's the court system that I feel is more flawed than anything else because it's, like you said, it's really a double-edged sword in that way because you got so many people going in different things, and when they got juries and everything, it was like everybody got their opinion, everybody got their viewpoint. Yeah, the outcome don't come out certain times, most of the times how we want it to or how people should think it should be. But as us, we learn, you know, just deal with it and keep going on because at the end of the day, we still got to continue living. We still got to get along with each other. We actually still got to improve the communication. I feel like if all the people in the community, the leader-wise, and I'm talking about race, I'm talking about every type of leader in the community get together and just have communications about, hey, man, what you want our community to be, because we want to be a safe place for these kids. We want to be a safe place where, you know, there ain't no trouble going on. There ain't nothing like that. It comes down to the safety at the end of the day. And by me being a father with kids, I do have two worries. And this is my opinion, my worries, because I do see some of the negative stuff that be happening. I'm scared of my kid going outside playing with a Nerf gun. One, for I don't want no one to mistake him having a real gun. But then also, at the same time, too, I don't want to be in a neighborhood where, like, make mistake is a drive-by and he gets shot just because he's out there in the thing. So there needs to be a middle ground because it's based about the kids' lives and their experience, and we don't want them spirits no hate, because like Tupac said this. I don't know. Everybody heard Tupac.
I love Tupac.
He loved Tupac. So look, it said the hate you give, the F word,
Yeah.
little infants.
Yeah.
So, and we don't want to mess up the kids, because the world we living in right now is already messed up enough. Let's do some more healing and actually, bringing this stuff together. I want this unity, because to be all at the end of the day, we're all human beings trying to survive on this planet and get along. But until we understand we're all human beings in the same thing, and we like, your life matter, we matter, and we start treating people as equals, same opportunities, then I guarantee you, like, bro, this life world.
See, like we said earlier, like we said earlier about people who, like, they have these really strong beliefs, but they don't really have any, like, basis on it. I would just like to provide you with some perspective, like, as a black kid, why I feel the way I do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
First of all, I feel like, cops, just because of how the system is set up, like, you guys are the face of, like, what goes on from law enforcement side. Like, if they enact a law or they feel like something needs to happen, you guys are the one that has to go in. The same way that, like somebody in the Middle East, if their home was destroyed and now you see, these military people, obviously you're going to have these negative feelings about it. And it comes down to being a human and preconceptions. Like, we're all human. We all have preconceptions. Yeah. But the thing is like, when you have those preconceptions and you act on them, that's where the issue is drawn. Like, they messed up, first of all, by not providing you guys with therapy, all the things you have to go through.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that you're not given something like that from the start to help you kind of deal with it, it's there's a failure on their part. And like you said, the whole court system being worse than necessarily cops are. Mm-hmm. Where the real outrage comes is not the incident or the tragedy, because you see that like once or twice, maybe, every few months. Yeah. It's when the ruling happens and it's like, how did we see this happen? And, we have these set laws and they still manage to get past it. Yeah. But again, like me personally, I feel like the issue with, at least on this side, is like many cops have preconceptions. Many people in general just have preconceptions about other groups, but it's like you guys are the ones who have the power to act on it. Mm-hmm. And I've been in that position where like I had a preconception about a group of people, like in the hood, right? And then I went and I lived with my cousins, and I was in that for like a year, and it's like, you kind of realize like, even if they're doing something bad, at the end of the day, they're human and they're doing it because of their circumstances. So rather than like desensitizing their humanity by saying things like, thug or criminal or things like that you hear in the media, let's get to the underlying issue in our society as to why they have to be in this lifestyle in the first place. And a lot of people just don't try and unlearn their preconceptions. The same way you could say, oh, a cop is racist, so you could say, oh, that black guy looks suspicious. Yeah. Like you don't have any context, you don't have any prior basis. You're just going based off your preconception.
And that's a two-way street, because you see that you have the cops that they're rolling in and they're dealing with somebody and they're getting called. I can't tell you how many times I've been called cracker or racist or whatever. And you get to the point, you're like, okay, yeah, and then you're like, you know what, fine. I know I'm pulling up in this neighborhood. They're gonna call me every name in the book. Yeah. I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna be very blunt about it and get the hell out. Okay, that's one way to do it. But it goes back to the same thing, is when I roll in and they see me in my uniform, and if they have the preconception that, this is a white cop, which is a white male cop is the worst thing to be in law enforcement, is because that's where the epitome of evil. I'm not a white cop, I'm Nathan. Yeah. And when people ask me, what do you do? What are you? I'm a father. Yeah. I'm not a cop. A cop is what I do.
That's your job.
That's my job.
That's your job.
It's not who I am. And I'm a father first, and I'm a man, and I approach people with that philosophy. And the thing I tell the young officers that work for me or work under me and stuff like that, I say, treat everybody the way you would want your mother treated in the same situation. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to use the cop language. To the second part of that is, well, if your mom is a rating B, then treat them accordingly. You go in professional. You say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. If that doesn't work, you ultimately are the one in charge of the scene, and you have to take control, and you can't have people yelling and screaming and fighting in front of you because you're not getting anything done. So I tell them, go in, be professional. If they don't allow you to be professional, get stern with them, get the situation calmed down, and go back to professional. But if you start out like a raging a-hole, that's all you have. That's the first impressions. The first thing is, if I walk up to you and hey sir, what's going on? You gave us a call, and then you start MFing me and dropping racial slurs on me, I'll be like, hold on, we're not going to do this. And I will, as a lieutenant, I will tell people, if the citizens are yelling, cussing, screaming, and being disrespectful to them, I'm like, these guys and gals don't get paid enough to that. We'll come back and deal with your problem when you can be civil. Yep. Because I'm not going to let my guys and gals talk to the public like that. But sometimes, you know what? And I've had this conversation with our administration and stuff like that. I said, law enforcement can be ugly. Yeah. And there are times you have to drop an MF on somebody. Yeah. And sometimes it's just to get the point. I don't want to get in a fight. I'd much rather talk my way in and out of the situation and be done with it. But will I fight? Yeah, I'll fight. I've been involved in a shooting that goes back to your lack of therapy and stuff like that. I was involved in a shooting, about 8 years ago, going on 9 years ago. And I went to counseling 4 days after the event. I was off a week and had no follow-up.
Wait, what? Mm-hmm. See, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, because, I can have PTSD. I can have my preconceptions about cops as a whole, right? But, like, I'm not going to take that and apply that to you when I don't know you. Yeah. So, like, you got to let people's, like, even if you have preconceptions, you haven't been able to unlearn them, you got to at least let people's actions, individual actions, speak for themselves.
That's exactly right.
And, like, that lack of therapy, you go into a situation like that, you end up in a shooting, right? Mm-hmm. Now, because you haven't been able to, like, properly get through that, you could end up in a similar situation and, like, that PTSD triggers. Okay. And now you're more on edge, and now you don't want to be in that same situation where you're vulnerable and, like, hey, I could get shot. So you might be more, like, prone to pull out your gun. Yeah. It seems so simple when you break it down, but, like, when you have to apply it to all these, like, different communities, all these different people, it's like, why haven't we done it yet?
And I think one of it boils down to money. If society wanted the ideal law enforcement officer that was able to have be an expertise on mental health issues and the law and use of force and everything else, you would have to start cops out at like $150,000, $200,000 a year. And just like when you hear the arguments, well, I can, why didn't you shoot him in the leg or something like that? You know what? Yeah, we could probably spend every guy out the range and maybe get half the agency proficient enough to shoot people in the thigh if they're perfectly standing still.
See, and like trying to get people to train them up, especially in something that they're not an expert at, I don't think that's the solution either. No. Like, me personally, like, if you get on a call, right, and they tell you that there's a mental health crisis going on, rather than just sending, police officers who may not be experienced at it, or just, a counselor who doesn't really have that protection for themselves, send them as a unit. Like, send them together so that you guys can work with your strengths to help solve the situation properly.
Because that was my question. That was my question. I was about to ask, like, all right, because I realized you said, like, most of the young cops that are coming in these days, they have a problem with the communication. Mm-hmm. How do we correct that on both sides?
First and foremost, if the community has an issue with the law enforcement officer, don't argue with them on scene, because what it's going to be a
pissing contest.
Yeah, it's going to be a measuring contest. Yeah. Who's got the bigger one? Yeah. And what's going to happen is I walk up to you and you give me attitude, and I'm a young cop. I'm like, oh, he can't talk to me, so I'm going to give you attitude. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have an issue with the way I'm talking, and the good thing is most agencies go on a body camera. If he's treating or she's treating you poorly, contact the supervisor. and deal with that individual. I do not like Lieutenant Hall because Lieutenant Hall is a jerk and he's treated me poorly. That doesn't mean Lieutenant Smith and Lieutenant Johnson and Lieutenant whoever is the same way. It's Lieutenant Hall. Same thing with if I go to a scene and there's 6 10-year-old kids and Evan is the biggest turd of them all. I'm going to deal with him as being a turd, and the other kids are going to be dealt with on a one-on-one basis. And that's what we have to get to do is as police officers, you have to be understanding of your community and who you work with and things like that. But also you need a little understanding from citizens, and that on the side of the road is not the time to argue. While we're responding to a call, it's not the time to argue.
Especially a high-stress situation.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And going to the high-stress situation, the one thing about law enforcement, to get really, really good at your profession, it takes time. And the prime example I could show is like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You hear people talk about the game of football at high levels, is that it's like, oh my God, this rookie, you can see him, a rookie quarterback. They're dancing around in the pocket. Their feet are, they're happy feet. They're looking. The more time you do it and the more things you're exposed to, everything slows down. Same thing with Tom Brady. Is chaos is going on around him. And it looks like, you can look at him and you're like, he doesn't have happy feet. You cannot see the stress on him. He may be running 1,000 miles a minute in his head, but his demeanor and everything is slowed down. Same thing with like me. I've been a cop for 26 years. I hit 20 years on SWAT next March.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've done and seen a lot. So the game society has slowed down for me. So when I show up, I'm calmer. And I can like start seeing stuff, and I can start saying, okay, this is what's going on here, because I've been exposed to it so much that it's like, okay, yeah, this guy, and you key on him. You walk in and you're like, you see everybody, and then you see that one guy that's just like deadlocked eyes on you and just won't. You're like, okay, I need to probably pay attention to that guy. If I walk in and everybody's smiling and big smile, and there's that one guy in the corner and he's just like mean mugging you all the way, you're like, okay, that's probably the guy I got to worry about. And but that's the thing is the other issue is nobody wants to be cops anymore. And I'm not saying that we're not getting good candidates, but we're not getting like when I got hired on with the sheriff's office, I think there were 6 positions and 156 applicants. Now we'll have like 12 positions and 8 applicants. It's just and you get to the point where it's a numbers game, and sometimes you're like, okay, we've got calls for service that we have to answer, so we start lowering our standards. Like when I first started in law enforcement, you ever smoked weed? That was almost like a deal breaker. You couldn't even become a cop in the mid 90s.
I think we need to go back to them high standards.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because the standards have gone from, okay, you hadn't smoked weed in the last 6 months, okay, or you haven't done a hard drug in the last 5 years. Those are some of the standards that agencies are passing. That you've got cops that have done cocaine or methamphetamine throughout their lives, and now they're cops. But the thing is it's like, we've got crime. We don't have enough bodies. We don't have this. We don't have that. Okay. And the thing is like in large areas where they run 2 to a car, we run 1 to a car every place in this area. If you see 2 people in a car, it's because they're more than likely a training officer and a new trainee. But yeah, no agency in Panhandle that I know of rides 2 to a car.
Dang. Well, I'd like to ask you this. The whole standards thing. For me personally, looking at it, I feel like certain things, like, if you have a history of abuse, whether that be at home or against others, sexual violence, misuse of power, things like that, I feel like should definitely be a red flag. But, going back to your experience thing and how that can improve your job performance, if you do have like a cop, like even if you don't have like a mental health counselor, right, and you end up on a call where there's somebody who's overdosed, how do you think, like I say, I've done meth and I become a cop and I get to that scene, I feel like that would allow me to be a little more understanding, sympathetic, and be able to help and mediate that situation better. Do you feel like that also needs to be added to the standards, like drug use?
I think it should be a case-by-case basis, because there's no blanket for anybody. And the thing is if you were to interview me back when I was 21, 22 years old, and talk to me now, you're like, that's two completely different people. Yeah. I think people are capable of change. Even the most heinous crimes, people can change themselves. But I also believe that there are certain things that are so vile and unredeemable that you pissed your chance away. I think like child molesters. I think you're done. Me personally, I don't think there's any coming back from that. And I don't think the risk versus reward is it's not there. The thing is when you start getting involved in stuff like that, and you have kids that are victims of crimes, is you rob them of who they're going to be. Yeah. And not just sexual crimes, but any abuse or even a traumatic event. You see these young kids, and they see their mom or dad get killed in front of them. Those kids are not going at that moment forward. Their life has been altered, and they're not going to develop to what they could have had they not been involved in that.
Yeah, because I think that also goes along with like us as adults too, because like I felt like my time got squandered because I got falsely accused of rape, and then found out that all of it was a lie and everything. But like the way the media perceived me and everything, it was like it's so hard to change your name after they label you as something, and it's just like, and then it affects me too because like I know that the girl would never have to go through anything I went through.
And that falls back on the legislative branch of government is if because there are crimes for filing false police reports, but if you made it like maybe one step lower than the crime you're accusing somebody of, let's say it was a first-degree felony, you're accusing somebody of a first-degree felony. Well, if you file this false report, you could be charged with a second-degree felony. If you made the lie, the punishment substantial enough, you could probably alter some of that stuff. Because that's the thing is are there innocent people in jail? Yeah, I'm sure there are. And people falsify information, or people lie to the cops and stuff like that. Yeah. And the thing is very rarely is crime witnessed by law enforcement. We're always getting second, third hand information, and we have to put the pieces together. And the thing is you know what? Yeah. Do some people plant evidence or alter evidence? Yeah, they do. Some do. Have I ever seen it? No. But it does happen. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not very common. And just like you were saying earlier, you see the bad event maybe once, twice, every couple months. Yeah. What you don't see is there's like 1 million interactions between law enforcement and American citizens every day in this country. 1 million. Yeah. And if we'll just say 3 months. So there's 1 million encounters. So that's 90 million encounters over 3 months. Yeah. And you have 2 incidents. What is the percentage of having a negative encounter with law enforcement that turns poorly?
Oh, yeah. It's not very common.
That's exactly right. But the thing is, on the news,
that's the main one.
That's the news. It's like it's happening every day. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. How many? I've bought Christmas for
the whole community,
for families and stuff. And I love his mom about it because she's like, I come home and she's like, what's going on? I said, I went to this house and the youngest child's sick, and they're going to Jacksonville for surgery, and mom can't afford it. She had to spend Christmas money, and she said, all right. Next morning, she's like, come on, let's go. I said, where are we going? We're going to Walmart. What for? I said, because we're going to load up your cruiser, and you're going to drop off Christmas to the kids.
Yeah.
And we got to that point. I'm not rich by any means. We were never rich, but we did well, and we were allowed to do that. We still do that today. We go by
that's great.
Christmas for underprivileged kids. We'll pull the tags off a Christmas tree. We buy a boy and a girl every year, me and him.
And that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
And that's the thing is just giving back is just having that sense of community. And the thing is we're all Americans, and you're talking about labels and stuff earlier, and I think if we could get rid of the labels of African American
and just American,
or that's the that's
exactly what we are.
Why am I not called a European American?
We're actually the only country. We're the only country that actually does that,
and that's the system, like right there again.
Yeah, but the thing is if you look at, like, you see a lot of schools and stuff, and they're trying to, like, segregate dorms and safe spaces for people and this, that, and the other. I was like, oh my God, you look at what the people did back in the 60s through the civil rights wars and stuff like that. And we're reverting back to what we fought. Why would we want to go backwards? It's insane.
See, I laugh at it. I laugh at them because it's. I'll go ahead. You go ahead,
Eddie. Before we get into that one, like with the positive interactions with cops, like there have been times where I know like I'm doing something wrong, and like at that point I just have to accept my responsibility, right? Like I've been caught smoking, me and my friends, and we're out in public, and the reason we got caught is because there happened to be like a lot of shootings downtown that night, so the police were just active, and the cop came up to the window. And, the smoke comes out, it's a big wall, and then he's just like, damn. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to jail. Yeah. Like, I done messed up. But the cop knew that, like, with everything going on that night, and, it's not that serious. He used to smoke. He was like, listen, man, it's not that serious. Like, just go home. This isn't your neighborhood. If you want to do that, you find the proper avenues to do that.
You can do that at your house.
Exactly. Yeah. So rather than, like, me having to come and do this to you. So
yeah, that's exactly what I do. Is because the thing is we have such a lenient approach on marijuana use now because there's so many medical cards and things like that. My conversation is, dude, where are you going to find me? More likely on the highway or in your living room. Go home and smoke that. I've never smoked weed. I'm 47 years old. I've never done that. I'm not an angel by any means. I drank more alcohol before I was 21 than I have since. Yeah. But it's know your environment.
And know where to do it.
The cops aren't going to roll up in your living room and arrest you for having a little bit of weed if you're in your living room. But if you're riding around where the cops are and you bring it to their attention, you're like, some cops can be like, man, I got bigger things going on right now. Get on home. And other people will be like, well, if I take them to jail, I can get 2 hours of overtime for paperwork. And they're like, hey, Christmas is coming up and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing is and sometimes you're like, and I'll admit it, as a training officer, I did that one time. We caught a guy with a little bit of weed. We're going to kick him loose and stuff like that. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, this is a training opportunity. And I looked at my trainee and I said, hey, have you ever done an NTA, which is a notice to appear? It's an arrest, but you don't take him to jail. Yeah. And I was like, we didn't have a whole lot of opportunities to do those. So I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. And I kind of screwed the guy for the weed by giving him a charge, but I was training someone else to do it, and it was not, and we could have taken him to jail, but it was just a training opportunity. And sometimes that's what decisions are made on. It's something that simple.